Welcome to S&P Sports. Today we're going to be talking about the NFC North. Of course, I am Matt Popcorn Knife Muller, and this fine gentleman next to me, future New Mexican Lobo,
Ryan Showtime Velasquez.
Yeah. So this is part 3. As I said, we're going to talk about the NFC North. Now we're going to start things off with Josh Pugh's favorite team, the Green Bay Packers.
Fudge back.
So we start things off with Josh Pugh's favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. They actually have a key addition, maybe a key addition. It's up in the air. Running back Eddie Lacy, and that's a good addition. Hopefully, because their rushing definitely needs some help. Last year they only had 1,700 yards total rushing all season. That's it.
Weak.
I guess when you have Aaron Rodgers, you don't need to run the ball though, right?
Aaron Rodgers was the second leading rusher on the team.
Wow, that's pretty bad. But he did have a good year. 4,295 yards, 39 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. So that's pretty solid. They did get rid of Woodson, and they got rid of Donald Driver as well.
And Greg Jennings.
So they got rid of some pieces. But they still have, Jordy Nelson. Of course, they still have Clay Matthews on the defensive side with 13 sacks last year.
Only 12 games.
12. He's a beast.
He is. It's those golden locks. He's like Samson in the Bible.
It's got to be. I personally thought they had a disappointing playoffs because, they're one of the power teams in the NFC, and you thought, at least they make the championship game. But they end up losing to the 49ers in divisional. But I think the big question, of course, every year with the Green Bay Packers is Brett Favre coming back? And you just never know. I think he might come back and separate himself in the interceptions record, because he holds the records for most interceptions thrown. And, if he's not careful, someone might not sneak up and steal that record from him. So
I think that record's pretty safe. He's the best at throwing picks that there's ever been.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, they are going to retire his number this year, so hopefully that means we don't see any more Brett Favre except in Wrangler commercials.
Wrangler, get some.
Real comfortable jeans. But anyways, the Green Bay Packers, of course, are a power team. Do you think they're going to, be as dominant as they have been?
I've got a beef with the Packers. The year they won the Super Bowl, they were the wild card team. They were the number 6 team, and then after that, it was just decided that the Packers had to be this great team. But since then, they haven't made it very far in the playoffs. Sure, they lost they've lost to the Giants, they lost to the 49ers in the playoffs, and I just haven't been impressed. They got Aaron Rodgers who throws the ball a lot, like Drew Brees, but their defense, like the Saints, isn't really all that it's cracked up to be. Not to mention the run game. They had no rusher over 470 yards or over 2 touchdowns, which you can't really win like that. And the offensive line was not good. Aaron Rodgers was sacked 51 times, 34 of those coming on the road. And in the month of November, Aaron Rodgers' completion percentage was 57% with 7 touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions. So he had a struggling November. So, it's just going to be interesting to see if the defense can be there for him, and then if there's a running game, or is it all going to rely on Aaron Rodgers' shoulder?
Yeah, I think, with the Packers, there's a certain air of greatness or something that they think they're entitled to. I'm not a big Packers fan person myself, but a lot of people...
No, we like girls.
A lot of people tie themselves to them, even though, they might not have grown up in that area. It's because it's one of the legendary NFL franchises.
It's a big name like Notre Dame.
Yeah, exactly. Comparable to that. But I think, of course, they're going to have a pretty good year. You always see them in talks for the Super Bowl, so it'll be interesting to see if Aaron Rodgers can perform again. And up next, we're going to talk about the team, I guess you're pretty close to me now, the Chicago Bears.
Cubs!
All right, the next team we're going to talk about in the NFC North is the Bears, Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
No key additions here either. Do you have any key additions, Ryan?
No key additions, but since we're talking about the Bears, I want to give a shout out to my boys, Pete, Kevin, Taco, and Andre in Ruxin over there in North Winnetka, Illinois. Those of you that are fans of the league, you'll know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait for that show to come
Pete Top,
out.
Kevin Bottom.
It's a great show. If you don't watch it, you should.
Watch it every night before bed.
But they got rid of Lovie Smith. He is no longer there. The coach that led them to the Super Bowl. And it's not like they were bad last year. They had a winning record. But in Chicago, you got to get things done, I guess. So he didn't get done. So they brought in Mark Tessman. Brian Urlacher retired because they couldn't reach agreement there. So they lost Brian Urlacher. They still do have Julius Peppers, though, who had 11.5 sacks last year. But the big question is, can Jay Cutler not suck this year? He didn't have a bad year last year, but I feel like everyone hates Jay Cutler. Like, even Chicago fans are like, oh, we need to get rid of Jay Cutler.
Because he's a baby. Little baby back bitch.
He had 3,033 yards last year, 19 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Matt Forte had 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. But the big story, I think, that came out of Chicago was Brandon Marshall. He had 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns. So what does Chicago have to do to get back on top of the division here, Ryan?
Well, Brandon Marshall, Jay Cutler has thrown 63 interceptions in 56 games while a Chicago Bear with only 82 touchdowns. That's a 1.25 touchdown to every 1 interception, which is a terrible ratio. And he's never thrown less than 10 interceptions. He's played more than 10 games. Matt Forte, he's injury prone. He's never been below 920 yards, but he's also never scored more than 6 touchdowns since his rookie season. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can run the ball. And like you said, Brandon Marshall, he had over 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns. He also had 194 targets. The second best receivers had 375 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 60 targets. So if you shut down Brandon Marshall, you shut down the Bears.
Yeah. I don't know. The Bears have different form because it's one of those historical franchises for some reason too, and they're going to be under the gun. I think if Jay Cutler doesn't perform, I could definitely see him getting traded mid-season maybe, or someone else coming in. So it's interesting to watch.
Maybe trade him for Kyle Orton.
Yeah, get Kyle Orton back. That'll help you.
One thing they did have, the defense was stout last year. Only allowing 17.3 points a game. They also had a plus 20 turnover ratio. So they get turnovers. Fuck.
Yeah, I mean they're really balanced on defense, so that's the one shining point. And like I said, they had a winning record, but they're in the tough division, so you have to be better than what they did last year. And maybe Mark Trestman can come in and do that, but only time will tell. So up next, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. So next team we're talking about in the NFC North is the Minnesota Vikings. Let's start off with, they had one of the worst passing offenses in the league, but one of the best rushing offenses in the league. And why was that, Ryan?
Adrian fucking Peterson.
Exactly. His monster year. Of course, he almost broke the record. 2,097 yards and 12 touchdowns, and he won MVP. And then, of course, you have Christian Ponder's not-so-monster year. 2,935 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. However, they did add quarterback Matt Castle and wide receiver Greg Jennings. So maybe there's some hope for the Vikings in terms of passing offense. Do you think Matt Castle comes in and takes over Christian Ponder?
I think anybody could take over for Christian Ponder. Why the Vikings wasted a first-round pick for him in the first place is just mind-blowing. He wasn't that great at Florida State, and then now he's just god-awful in Minnesota. The only reason the Vikings made the playoffs was because they just, rode Adrian Peterson like a horse. Was like, let's go, Adrian! Yeah!
Yeah.
But Christian Ponder, he does have Samantha Ponder as his wife, so he's got one thing going for him. But yeah, I think Matt Castle sees some playing time this year.
For sure. And like you said, they made the playoffs last year. They barely made it, and they lost to the team that they beat the week earlier. So it was almost like they didn't make the playoffs.
They lose Percy Harvin, too.
Yeah, who was their leader in receiving yards last year. So, but I think Greg Jennings will be a nice addition for the Vikings. But, unless AP can decide to throw the ball too, they're going to have problems in this division. So, you got anything else on the Vikings, man?
Jared Allen had the second worst sack total as a Viking, so he needs to step that up. I remember, I think it was one game he almost had the single game sack record. So, most of those sacks came in one game. It's going to be interesting to see if he can, bring that sack total up. If not, this team is just going to be a complete waste.
Yep. So, we finished our talk about the NFC North by talking about the football team from the bankrupt city of Detroit. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. We wrap up our talk about the NFC North with the Detroit Lions. Added running back Reggie Bush.
Reggie!
Formerly of the Saints and the Dolphins. Do you play anywhere else?
USC.
USC, yep.
Played inside Kim K's Cooter, too.
Oh, yeah, where he didn't win the Heisman, right? Got stripped.
Vacated.
Yep. Stafford had an awesome year last year. Almost 5,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. Of course, when you have a target like Calvin Johnson, it's pretty easy to throw for that many yards. You just toss it in his general area, and he catches it.
Matt Stafford had a terrible year last year.
He didn't make the playoffs, but he threw for almost 5,000 yards.
Matt Stafford last year threw the ball 74 more times than the previous year, with 71 less yards, 21 less touchdowns, and one more pick, with a completion percentage of 59.8.
All right, fair enough. 5,000 yards is still impressive in my book, I guess. But Calvin Johnson.
The yards were impressive, but when you drop 21 touchdowns from one year to the next after throwing the ball more, that just is ridiculous.
Yeah. But Calvin Johnson did almost have 2,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. And he averaged 16.1 yards per catch. So that's pretty good. When you talk about Detroit, you cannot talk about Ndamukong Suh, of course. But he wasn't even the team leader in sacks. Cliff Averill was. He had 9.5.
Ndamukong Suh is the team leader of being a douche.
Yeah, and they lost their leading sacker to Seattle.
Seattle's just a sack machine.
Yeah. Of course, they had another off year after going to the playoffs 2 years ago. Do they get back in the playoffs this year, Ryan?
I don't know. Reggie Bush, I think, is a great addition. That'll give Matt Stafford a check down guy. Reggie Bush has always been a good receiving running back, like he was for the Saints. The Dolphins, they didn't really utilize it very well. And I think with Javad Best not turning out to be a good NFL back, that Reggie Bush is going to fill that void. The thing about Calvin Johnson, he had almost 2,000 yards, but he only had 5 touchdowns, which is kind of low compared to his seasons. But he got tackled at the 1-yard line 5 times last season, and wide receivers for the Detroit Lions got tackled inside the 5-yard line 23 times. So the wide receivers are getting super close to the end zone, but just not being able to make it in there. Also, minus 16 turnover ratio, which is not good. The defense allowed 27.3 points a game. So playoffs, I don't know as bad as they were last year, but I don't see them being able to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about the Lions either. We'll just have to see how this Reggie Bush works out. He's not the Reggie Bush that he used to be. He's older. And Stafford, maybe he'll put those numbers too, but like you said, he's got to have more touchdowns thrown and be more consistent. So that wraps our talk about the previews for the teams. Stay tuned because we're going to talk about who we think is going to win the NFC North. All right, so we wrap up our talk about the NFC North by predicting who we think is going to win the division. And I'm going to take the reins here and go first, and I'm going to say the Chicago Bears. I'm picking the Chicago Bears to win the division. Don't really like the Bears that much, but I think with the Packers losing Driver, Jennings, and who's the third? Woodson. Yeah. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Losing those three.
You have to have a brain to have a brain fart, Mom.
Okay. Yeah, losing those three, but having a pretty good year last year. New head coach. Brandon Marshall, I think, will have a pretty decent year. I think the Bears come out on top in this division. Who you got winning this division?
For me, I've got the Green Bay Packers coming away with this division. I've got it kind of close with the Bears. I just think, with Aaron Rodgers, he's going to have to lead the team like Drew Brees does in New Orleans when there's not a real great defense. The Bears have the defense to win the division, but they just don't have the offense, in my opinion. I mean, when you only have one guy catching all the passes, it's not going to do well. And the Green Bay Packers have Jordy Nelson, Jermichael Finley, James Jones, Randall Cobb. And then they got Eddie Lacy, who was a stellar running back for the Roll Tide, Alabama. I've just got them going all the way. I think Clay Matthews is going to continue to be a beast. A.J. Hawk there playing in the linebacking core. And Mike McCarthy's a pretty good coach. So I see the Packers going away with this one.
All right, so that makes us 3 out of 3 on disagreeing on division winners. Maybe we'll agree on the last one. Who knows?
Doubt it.
But until next time, we're part 4, NFC West. So tune in next time. I'm Matt Popcorn Knife Mauler.
Ryan Showtime Velasquez.
You're watching S&P Sports.